the Sony DVD home cinema experience. It stays with you.
Mum and Dad bought the family a tiny PC this Christmas.
They didn't know the first thing about computers, so they called this number for a brochure and found the nearest tiny showroom. They went along, had to go, got some really good advice.
We chose one that comes with everything we need for less than £1,000.
Trouble is, tiny PCs are so simple to set up and use. Even Mum and Dad got the hang of it.
Yes,
So we haven't had a go yet.
yes, I've got it go. Die, dogs, son of...
It's not fair.
It's not.
Come on! Come on! John, it's here, the gas bill!
OK, so your gas and electricity supplier isn't that important. But remember, at npower, we're constantly working to lower your bills.
New from Margaret Astor, Magic Style Mascara. Builds volume and lengthens lashes from natural to magical the more you apply. Stunning by day, bewitching by night. New Magic Style Mascara, only by Margaret Astor. Colour your emotion.
We don't just offer Virgin products, we offer thousands of products from hundreds of companies. To sort out your money, visit virginmoney.com.
It was like the scene from Apocalypse Now, when the air mobile forces are arriving and Francis Ford Coppola is saying, make like you're fighting, you're in a war. These guys were crawling along under our noses.
You know, US Navy SEALs turned up in all their sort of tackle, dressed to kill, and found nothing more dangerous than the massed ranks of the international media flashing their lights at them.
Can you tell me what it was like coming in today?
A little bit scared, sir.
Describe what was happening when you were coming in and how you feel now about being in Somalia.
I feel great being in Somalia. I'm trying to help the people, sir.
Somalia, December the 9th, 1992. This was the coming of the new world order to Africa. Heavily armed, well-meaning, confused. Operation Restore Hope was meant to ensure the delivery of relief supplies to the starving people of a war-torn country. Military intervention was what many of the aid agencies had been calling for months.
I felt elation that my anguish and the anguish of hundreds of others in the voluntary agency community as well as the UN system who had been working in a high level of frustration trying to get food to all of these people and not being terribly successful at it, was coming to an end. You know, that was going to stop.
A couple of years before the UN landing forces arrived in Mogadishu, civil war had broken out in Somalia. The government fell, feuding began, and famine came in its wake. Most of the aid agencies operating in the country, including the UN, left. A handful remained. It was tough going.
We stayed there. Maybe we should have left. It was very dangerous. And we paid a certain price for staying. We learned through mistakes. That's how we learned. Our operation was based on mistakes. We brought food, it was looted. We brought food, we distributed food. People were killed during that process. They were.
Relief supplies were being targeted by warring militias. Gradually, agencies, or non-governmental organizations as they're known in the jargon, returned. But some found it hard to learn the lessons of Somalia.
NGOs were renting stolen vehicles from the people who had stolen them. And in order to rent a vehicle, you also had to pay the gunman who came with the vehicle. Because the guys who were controlling the vehicles really didn't care if you lived or died, but they didn't want to get their vehicles stolen. But the conceit was that you were paying for protection. In fact, they were protecting the vehicles.
The agencies which had stayed on throughout the Civil War worked closely with Somali colleagues. But some of the returning NGOs seemed to Somalis less interested in local advice.
Most of the NGOs would tell us, like, we are here, we are impartial, we don't want to do anything with the Somalis. Every Somali has an agenda, and we want to work by ourselves.
Some agencies gradually realized that they were contributing to the conflict. In a desperately poor country, food itself was a reason for fighting.
Our food was creating more security problems because it was dry, it was in bags, it could be used as an exchange for security, as an exchange for healthcare, as an exchange for a visa out of the country, as an exchange for truck transport. The only thing we could do, or our response, was to cook it. So we cooked the food, and then we said, okay guys, we're going to give you cooked food.
The UN, working through the World Food Programme and CARE, brought in dry food, stored it in warehouses and distributed it from well-advertised collection points. The system didn't work. The stores were raided and the food stolen from the needy.
We finally ended up totally frustrated in that the inability to deliver the resources that we were having from the private sector of the United States, individual donors, that we had to then turn around and say, I'm sorry, but the money you entrusted us with to give to starving Somalians was stolen. Very bad thing to have to do. The donor community is very intolerant of that kind of problem.
To frustrated aid chiefs, Somalia looked chaotic. Order had to be imposed so that their workers could deliver the food. But some experts said that what looked like chaos wasn't. There was no government, but much of Somali society was still functioning, based around the clan system.
In years past, 50 years ago, the clan elder was an authoritative person looked to with admiration and respect. But in the present, the militia person would say, get out of my way or I will blow you away.
My response, which is based on my own experience, is that of course there's a very well-functioning society, an extremely important clan system. And we can't pretend to come to a country and decide just because we are there what's going on. In the absence of government ministries, we're saying that we can't work with the Somalis because there is no community and no clan system. Sorry, but it is a little bit arrogant. Of course there is a community, and of course there are people, and of course there is a structure. And it is for us to identify that structure and to work with that structure.
In the summer of 1992, Somalia's plight became the focus of world attention. Journalists flooded into the country.
The reporters needed the story. The aid agency supplied the story. People from the WFP, from the Red Cross, whatever, they were coming up and they were giving away tickets to, let's come on, I'll fly you to Baidoa, we'll fly you to Badera, we'll do this. It's like the way they hand out, seats to go sit in game show audiences. At the beginning, there's seats on the airplanes. The WFP flies people back and forth to show them their famines. And they fly them to exactly where the problem is. So the journalists involved never get a huge picture.
In the West, many agencies were campaigning for a military intervention.
go in there and take over the country.
Somali warlords, they said, were preventing safe passage for relief.
The heck with their consent. Put a military unit in there and take over the city of Mogadishu. It has 1/3 of the entire Somali population.
Many argue that the famine was already in decline. Aid had helped overcome it. The call for armed intervention to some Somalis was not a solution. It was evidence of a failure to understand their country.
When we first heard about the intervention, we were both surprised and at the same time shocked and scared as well. And when I say, intervention, you just can't call for intervention without any agenda and involve more people, and talk to us, and let's open a debate, a seminar, whatever, and just listen. And they say, no. Every Somali is a party, is a part to a clan, and we can't trust them,
On December the 9th, 1992, the UN's Operation Restore Hope landed on the beaches of Mogadishu. The troops' mandate was to create a secure environment for the delivery of relief. Humanitarians were now wielding unprecedented influence. They'd called for military action in a country by foreign forces and got it. Within a few months, the intervention force itself was engaged in warfare.
Cannon fire from the gunships left at least 100 wounded and perhaps 100 more dead. But UN spokesmen justified the action, saying the women and children were involved in the attack.
In an ambush, there are no sidelines or spectator seats. But the individuals on the ground were considered combatants.
As the UN forces started to pursue a local warlord, thousands of lives were lost, most of them Somali. Within 4 months, the UN expanded the mandate, instructing its troops to establish political structures in the country. The agencies had got more than they had bargained for.
Well, I was saddened that the political agenda was actually put into action. I don't think we have the right to tell people what kind of governance they have or who should be the leader or who should not be the leader of that kind of thing.
The NGOs asked for a military intervention and then for some stupid reason expected the military to act like humanitarians. Soldiers are not humanitarians. They're trained to shoot and kill, and that's what they do.
In October 1993, a failed attempt to capture a warlord cost 700 Somali and 18 American lives. The battered body of an American serviceman was dragged through the streets.
The sight of an American airman's body being dragged around the streets of Mogadishu, led millions of Americans in sitting rooms to say, gee, we went out there to help and this is what they do for us?
In March '94, the troops left. The reputation of the UN had been seriously damaged, but not as much as Somalia, which is still struggling to overcome the legacy of wars and the UN's intervention.
I pray to God for the Somali people. I pray that they will find a way to raise themselves out of this anarchy and turmoil and to build some kind of society based on love instead of based on the gun.
Just 2 weeks after the troops left, the next big crisis hit. The agencies and the world community tried to learn the harsh lessons of Somalia, but they got hold of the wrong lessons.
At PC World, we've helped even more people choose a new PC, more than anyone else in Britain. And of course, the more of you who join us, the more we can hammer down on prices. Driving them even lower, right across Britain's biggest range of